My name is Rebecca Renee. See, many parents, they just name their child after a relative or maybe something as simple as picking a name through the baby book. But you see, my name came from such an intriguing story. Oh, wait. Now that I remember, it was a sad story. And that story started with a bullet. A bullet through the head. Shakespeare in his play Romeo and Juliet once said, "What's in a name? That which we call a rose by any other name would still smell just as sweet." See, Shakespeare understood that just because we name an object doesn't necessarily define it. Each day, life has its hardships that we must endure. Thank goodness we always have our friends to help us through these hard times, right? Right. At least that's what my perfect world would consist of. Because you see, in my perfect world, we would have groups of communities of friends and family who would help love and nurture each other. But what happens when we step into reality and we don't have these friends and family? And we're left completely alone and frightened. For some, these emotions are too real, and these feelings can lead to many things, such as broken families and shallow school lives that are reinforced by a never-ending 24-hour media cycle that delights in modeling the unhealthiest aspects of a relationship. Case in point, Kim Kardashian and her everlasting 72-day marriage to Chris Humphries. For those of you guys who are my age, you begin to see your so-called friends begin to stab you or hurt you in the back. And inside, you begin to feel rejected. So today, let's stop. And let's discuss three main themes. Number one, where does rejection come from? Number two, how do people deal with rejection? And best for last, number three, how can we overcome it? Now, let's gather some momentum and finally break these blockades into overcoming rejection. Because after all, life is a journey meant for us all to be enjoyed. It was the darkest day for my father, August 28, 1996. My grandpa appeared that morning, pounding on our front door. After hearing the commotion, my mom rushed to the front door to see who was there. And after hearing my grandfather's news, she ran back to their bedroom to wake my sleeping dad. The next few words stated sounded off the walls. Mom shot herself. After hearing the story of my grandmother's suicide, I wondered what led her to do these devastating actions. And after reviewing her life, I could only come up with one conclusion. My grandmother had been a victim of rejection. Rejection is the leading cause of suicide, and it derives from many starting factors, beginning with bullying. All psychology careers shows that. 20% of adolescents alone already face depression due to the fact that they are rejected by their peers. Moreover, Yale University conducted a research stating that bully victims are 9 times more likely to commit suicide. The bullies are destroying the healthy community we so need. But what we sometimes fail to realize is bullies are also victims of rejection. UnderstandingBullies.org stated that 68% of bullies, 68% of bullies come from an abusive home. So we can see that bullying is not the only path that leads to rejection. In fact, for many people, much like my grandmother, rejection started somewhere else besides the schoolyard. For her, rejection started in her home. Mom shot herself. He rushed to his childhood home where he had created so many of his memories. When he got there, he saw her slumped over the table, and he reached out, he grabbed her arm. It was cold. He thought about trying CPR, but he knew it was too late. Where had it gone wrong? What had he done wrong? Had he not been a good enough son? Apparently not, because in that instant, in that moment, in that time frame, he felt so alone, so worthless, so guilty, so rejected. Pastor Greg Mitchell, a youth counselor from Christian Fellowship Ministry, stated, "What is broken on the inside cannot be fixed on the outside." Many times when people are facing rejection, they will turn to substitutes to fill that empty void. These substitutes can consist of materialistic things, such as cars, money, other men, other women if you're married, and oftentimes drugs. You see, these outside diversions, they're meant to fill our lives with meaning, but they never do. Worse, we become wounded because we become so desperate to live up to the world's standards as to how we must be, hoping that we'll gain a little bit of acceptance. We begin to invent plots, sometimes dangerous to our own selves, just to gain a little bit of attention. In a survey titled Joys and Dilemmas of Wealth by Boston College and Caliber Wealth Management, the wealthiest, most jet-setting group revealed, shh, don't tell anyone, but they're actually pretty unhappy. loads and loads of money trying to prove their worth to their own parents. Time and time again, research has shown that people will turn to almost anything just to get that little feeling of acceptance or attention. The scary thing is, though, what these people think is helping them, in reality, it's just a quickly fading temporary solution to a deeper, long-term problem. As I sit with my dad and hear him recount the painful story of how his mother committed suicide, he pauses. And with an earnest look in his eye and a tremble in his voice, he tells me how he had to make a choice. Let's go back to that story. When he was feeling so alone and so worthless, would he allow himself to wallow in that same guilt, that same depression, that same rejection that stole away his beloved mother? Or would he do something else? Well, I wouldn't be telling you guys this story today, and my dad had decided to take the same path as his mother did. We know that he, along with the path with his friends, his family, and his church, was able to rise out of these ashes. But this story kind of begs a question from each and every one of you here tonight. If none of the things that helped him overcome rejection that I talked about in my second point, what did? And ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to announce to you that the answer to overcoming rejection lies in the changing of your name. That's right, you gotta change your name before you overcome rejection. Now, before you think I'm crazy and I'm just spewing words, understand that names, they're actually pretty important. In biblical times, the name that you were given literally meant what you were, because the power was in the name. Today, the average man may be named Jacob, but Jacob may carry a different name, an inner name, rejected, and he may be in constant and isolated pain. Every day, labels are given to us, and sometimes they're not always very attractive. Stupid, ugly, fat, worthless, and we wear them around. Maybe not by our own personal choice, but because these are the names that people give us. And because of the emotional weight weighing us down, we, like Jacob, begin to name ourselves rejected, and we're in constant and isolated pain. No one can see the inner name that you give yourself, but don't worry, because you can overcome it. Elizabeth Ross said it best when she said, "People are like stained glass windows. They sparkle and they shine when the sun is out, but when the darkness settles in, their true beauty can only be revealed if there is a light from within." We have to change these inner names. And we can never overcome rejection, though, until we take a risk in changing the inner names that we give ourselves. Bob Marley, known for his reggae music and being suspiciously calm all the time, actually stated some pretty wise words when he said, "To love is to risk not being loved in return. To hope is to risk pain. To try is to risk failure. But the greatest hazard in my life, yeah, that's risking nothing at all." We have to change this risk, or we have to change this inner name, and we have to take the risk. See, my dad realized how important it was to do that. And because of that, he changed the name. And I was the product of that name. See, my name's Rebecca Renee. Rebecca after my grandmother committed suicide, and Renee carries the meaning reborn. Thus, my name literally means Rebecca is reborn. But the difference between this Rebecca and my grandmother Rebecca who committed suicide is, I have realized that life is worth living. See that man Jacob? That was me, and I was facing rejection on a daily basis. But I overcame it. I finally realized that, hey, I'm worth living today. And because of that, the inner name rejection that I used to have is no more. And the inner name that I now have is victorious. And I'm victorious. So today, I present a challenge to each and every one of you. Whether you're facing rejection or maybe some other inner name struggle, overcome it, take the risk, and change it. Because you have the power to do so. So what are you going to do? You have the choice, and you have the power.